Welcome back to another episode of the HigherUp podcast. I'm your host, Michael Smoke, and in this episode, we're going to be addressing the most commonly asked question that I've gotten in the last few weeks. How do I build motivation and discipline? Do you have any advice for sticking to my gym goals or whatever goals I have for myself in life? How do I do that? Why is it so hard? So we're going to be covering a few concepts that will hopefully provide you an understanding of how motivation and discipline work, how to build systems to relentlessly stick to your goals, building a why that will allow you to withstand anyhow, and creating accountability in your environment, and a little bit about why I believe motivation is, quite frankly, bullshit. So let's dive into it. Not going to waste a lot of time with this episode. The first thing you need to understand is the last thing I said just then. Motivation is bullshit. I heard someone in a video talking about the concept of personifying motivation. So let's take motivation and make it a friend. Take the actual emotional state, and it is just that, an emotional state of motivation, and put it into a human being. If that was someone in your life that exemplified the trait of motivation, they would not be in your life for long. Why is that? Well, they would be notoriously unreliable. They may be there when you need them, they may not be. There would be high highs and there would be low lows. They would be ultimately inconsistent. So you wouldn't trust them to get you out of a jam or to help you in a tight spot or to be there when you need them. They would be a notoriously unreliable human being. So why would you rely on the emotional state of motivation to be the thing that changes the trajectory of your life? When I applied logic to that and I understood that motivation is notoriously untrustworthy, I stopped looking for it. I stopped seeking it. I stopped trying to build it. I realized that that is not the foundation of which you build a changed life upon. Motivation is the same type of fleeting emotional state as happiness or sadness. You don't expect to be happy all the time. You don't expect to be sad all the time, but you expect that at some point in your life, you will run into instances and moments that breed those emotional states. Otherwise, you'd be relatively stable, hopefully, right? We're not too happy. We're not too sad. We're normal, homeostatic. Motivation is the same thing. So right away, if you're watching this with the hopes of having the question answered, how do I get motivated to do something? You came to the wrong place, but eventually you realize you came to the right place. I say that in all seriousness to say motivation is simply unreliable and it is not the thing you need to look at changing. What we need to look at changing is your discipline. And in doing that, changing your systems ultimately, which we're going to dive into here in just a minute. Now, let's start with the first concept. Let's talk a little bit about the physiological mechanisms behind motivation and discipline. What is actually happening when you do feel that spark of motivation? You want to go to the gym and crush it one time. It obviously doesn't last, but what is that? What's driving that feeling? This all boils down to the thing that we as humans are all chasing, and that is dopamine, that beautiful little neurotransmitter that we're all hooked on that keeps us on our phones, having bad habits, but also that motivates us to crush and build crush our goals and build businesses or do incredible things as well. Dopamine is the thing that drives us. So when you understand that dopamine is not actually, though commonly thought to be, the neurotransmitter of feeling good or well-being, well, that's true, and dopamine is abundant in the brain when we're happy or having a good time or at a concert. Dopamine is also abundant in the brain when we are in the pursuit of something. We've all felt that moment when you get into that deep work flow state. You're feeling good, you're feeling strong, you want to just crush the day, whether it's building a slide deck for your job or chasing a goal, you're training for something. That feeling of feeling good about what you're doing in the moment, that is dopamine surging through your brain. So if you can understand that the pursuit of a certain goal is going to give me dopamine, all I need to do is get into that mode, then you can maybe be more encouraged to chase the dopamine through that rather than going for cheap dopamine. Because I kind of believe there are two types of dopamine. There is a cheap dopamine and there is an expensive dopamine. The dopamine that is cheap is the dopamine that keeps you doom scrolling on your phone when you blink and you realize, oh my God, an hour and a half of my life has passed. What do I do? What have I been doing? And you realize you've been on TikTok looking at fucking dog skateboarding videos, which is something I've been doing lately. I won't get into that. The point is, that app, all of these apps are designed to hijack your dopamine receptors. It has the right colors, the right interaction icons. Those turn the right color when you click them. The algorithm feeds you things that is going to keep you on the app. And you need to be self-aware enough to realize that it is hijacking your dopamine center in the same way like a processed food would. The hyper palatable, hyper processed food we have in grocery stores and drive-throughs, those are hijacking dopamine receptors, and it's how people get hooked on them, just like they do screen time and social media. You can also get expensive dopamine on the other side of that. It just requires a little bit more of an investment. You've all felt it. That feeling when you didn't want to go to the gym, you walk in there and you have a great workout and you walk out the door and you go, fuck, I'm glad I did that. That is expensive dopamine. And in my opinion, that experience is not even in the same league as the cheap dopamine. You just have to be willing to make the investment to get there. I feel it when I go to my local run club on Thursday mornings and I'm surrounded by community and my friends, and we go get a deep sweat in on a trail run together as a community. We're tribal creatures. So I get a lot of dopamine and serotonin from that. It feels fantastic. So you need to become an expert in chasing the dopamine that you have to invest in. And that will be a huge catalyst in allowing you to adhere to your goals long term. At least for me personally, I have found when I understand the logic or the physiology or the mechanistic processes behind something, I have an easier time doing it because I tend to do things that make sense to me. And once I understood the dopamine feedback loop of you're in the pursuit of a goal, you get closer to the goal, you get dopamine from that pursuit, you can repeat that process over and over again with setting goals. I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I'd like to exploit my knowledge on that and pursue. So when you are in the pursuit of a goal, something you're chasing, something you're working toward, you are getting dopamine from it. But you have to be willing to sink in and hunker down and get into that deep work or deep training to get the dopamine release. It takes a little bit to get there. You know, that deep work feeling, actually, literature tells us it takes about 20 minutes of getting over the hump before you slip into that sort of flow state with your work and you're just zooming. That's about how long it takes for dopamine to be released in the body. Just an interesting fun fact. So now that you understand a little bit about the physiological mechanisms behind dopamine, and I pray that you cannot hear all the background noise right now. Good God, there's a barking dog. There's a guy working on the gutters. I, I hope to God that I don't have to re-record this because you can just hear me. Anyway, number two, probably the most important, even though all these are going to be important, building a why, a concrete, specific, bullet motherfucking proof why. Because if you don't have a strong why, you are not going to be able to withstand anything. Your why has to be greater than adversity, a busy schedule, lack of sleep, a general lack of willingness to do so, a lack of motivation, which is going to be inevitable, as I alluded to earlier. I'll give you a couple examples. People say all the time, well, I want to get fit. Okay. Why? Why do you want to get fit? Well, I want abs. Fucking, okay, why? You have to get deeper than that. I am really adamant about getting uncomfortably specific on your goals. So you can, instead of saying why, you could say, instead of saying I want to get fit, you could say, I want to lose 50 pounds because my health is now officially at risk. And I have children, I have kids to show up for, and I want to be here around them for a long time. That's a why. That's something you can lean on in times of uncertainty, lacks of motivation, sleep deprived days, days when you just don't want to do it. Your why is greater than the adversity or challenges that life will throw at you, because life will throw unelected challenges at you. It is guaranteed. And that's why it's so important to do hard things and have a strong why. So instead of saying, I want to get better at running, I get that one all the time. How do I get better at running? Why do you want to get better at running? Because if it's for no reason, I promise you're not going to have a good time. But you could set the goal of, I want to run a 10K because I want to prove to myself that I can do hard things. That's why I started running. Now, my why for running has changed. Not really. It's still to prove that I can do hard things. They've just gotten a little bit harder as I've gotten better at it. But the point is, you have to get specific. You have to get uncomfortably specific on your goal. And these are what I just said there. That's the first layer. So if you say, I want to get in better shape, I want you to get really, really, really honed in on what that looks like. How does that person operate? In what span of time do you want to do it in? What kind of internal dialogue does this person have with themselves? Basically, act as if you are already that person and you are more likely to get there. Which brings me to my last piece of this, building a why and developing goals. If you can use, I know it sounds so cliche, and some of you are about to be like, oh my God, when I say this, if you can use the SMART goal setting framework, hear me out. Some of you are sighing or cringing right now. Hear me out. There's a reason it's a cliche, because it fucking works. And for those of you that don't know what SMART goals are, it's an acronym for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Get specific on your goal. That's what I alluded to earlier. One of the things I tell my coaching clients is, what does you 10.0 look like? And I don't just mean physically. I mean mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Write it all down. How do they exist in the world? How do they treat others? How do they treat themselves? How do they eat? Do they sleep well? Every facet of that life, you have to create that avatar and that person and get uncomfortably specific. You have to see it. and then act as if you are them. And you will fall into that energy and that vibration, depending on what you believe. You will move into that form, or at least be far more likely if you get all of that figured out. Measurable. I want to run a 10K. No, you want to run a 10K by November 31st or 2 months from now or whatever. Pick a time, pick a deadline. We as humans work well on deadlines. Is it attainable? Are you trying to run a half marathon and you're 250 pounds overweight with a bunch of underlying health conditions and an ankle sprain? That may not be attainable. There may be time to put that on the back burner, worry about some other things, and then come back to the goal later when you're ready. Is it realistic? Sort of the same thing to the tune of attainable. Can you do it in the time frame, but can you do it at all? And then timely. Do you have enough time? Is 12 weeks, 8 weeks enough time to get to where you want to be, or is it a 6-month goal? Be realistic with yourself on the timeline of the goal. And once you have all of that written out, you're crystal clear. It's in front of you and out of your head, and it's real. It's at least more real. Fun fact, people who write their goals down are 41% more likely to achieve them. Go for it. Act as if you are already that person. You will be amazed at how your life changes. So build a why and then build goals around the why that are uncomfortably painstakingly specific. And I promise you, you are way more likely to achieve those goals. But if it's just about abs, if it's just about biceps, if it's just about, I don't know, running to run, if it's not specific, if it's not concrete, it's going to be really, really hard to stick to. I'm not saying it's impossible, but everything I set out to do this is just my experience, my life may be different for you. I have gotten uncomfortably specific on, and dare I say it, everything that I've set out, no matter how audacious it seemed at the time, I've done it in my business, with revenue goals, with personal growth goals, with business development goals, with my fitness goals. I have followed that framework of building a strong ass why behind why I want to do it to get me through the tough days and getting smart goals written out for those things. And it's been honestly life-changing. So try it. If you haven't, I'm begging you to try it. The next one, number 3, not all of you are gonna like, because, well, I don't like doing it either, but it works. Creating or manufacturing accountability for adherence. This is huge. And there's a couple of different ways that you can do it. So my favorite way is telling people about your goal. I know it sucks. I know it's scary, but again, we as humans work really, really well on a deadline or a fear of a potential negative outcome. So James Clear, in his book, which I'll be referencing again later in the episode, talks about humans often operate, and I might be butchering the way he says this, humans often operate better on fear of potential negative consequence rather than perceived potential positive gain. So, oh my gosh, the gutter guy's right outside my window. Hold on, I'm going to turn my mic down a little bit. Please, gutter man, please be quiet. Okay. As I was saying, that's going to be so hard to focus. As I was saying, telling people about your goals is huge because there's a potential negative consequence of, well, shame if you don't do the thing that you want to do. When I set out to run a marathon, I was scared to even tell people I was going to run a marathon. And then I signed up. I was like, well, I'm going to run it either way. But then I started telling people I'm going to do it in less than 4 hours, which is that incredible? No, but it's above average. I think if you run a sub 4 hour marathon, you're in like the 70th percentile, you're above average. So that kind of scared me. But then I ran a 3:48, and I'm honestly convinced, whether it's true or not, I don't give a shit, it's true for me. I'm convinced that a lot of the reason I did that is because I told people I was going to do it. I did not give myself a choice. I did not give myself a way out. I said I was going to do this, and I did this. I have a friend who's running in a big race here soon, and we were talking about what they wanted to do, and they said that, well, they wanted to win. And I said, "And what time do you want to run it in?" And they were resistant to telling me. I was like, "No, you got to tell me. You got to put it out there. You've got to let somebody know so that it's out in the universe, because that will make it more real and that will increase your chances of actually doing the thing." And they told me, and I'm hoping they've told more people, you know who you are, since then. But it's a really powerful way to create accountability for yourself because you don't want to let people down. We as humans are scared to be ostracized or cast out or feel shame. And there's nothing wrong with using that as a motivator and leveraging it. I was scared to say, I'm going to run a sub 4 hour marathon and then not do it. I was going to feel like a bitch. That's just the truth. I don't know what to say to you. And it works. I did the same thing with a mile. I said I was going to run a 5:20 and I ran a good bit faster than that. And I was super proud of that. And I think it was because I put myself in a corner and had to fight my way out through my training and through my adherence. The next thing you can do when it comes to fitness is training partners in terms of creating accountability. You can set time in your week every week that Every Monday night, you go for a run with Jeff or whoever, a buddy of yours. I don't know why I picked that name. That's weird. One of the things I love about Thursday Morning Run Club is that I've got to go. I've got to go. If I don't go, someone's going to text me, where were you? If I don't know who it would be, but somebody in there's going to be like, why'd you skip, man? Or I'm going to catch shit for it. And even though it might be a joke and it's not a big deal, it's enough to get me out of bed at 4:45 in the morning to go run and get my workout in, because I got to train either way. I'd rather do it with a group of people than by myself. So having set days in the week, every Monday, you go for a walk with a friend here. You go to Pilates with a friend here on Thursdays. You go to a run club on Saturdays. Create accountability through your schedule by setting up setting it up with other people rather, because we don't want to let people down. Similar to the way we don't want to be ashamed or embarrassed to tell people something, you also don't want to let people down. So start setting up days with people so that you have to show up, because if you don't, they're going to wonder where you are. Manufacturing and fostering accountability is incredibly powerful, because at the end of the day, your willpower is a tank, and it starts up here when you wake up. It's why I like doing the hardest shit first in my day, work wise, training wise. Do the hardest things first, because as we go throughout the day, that willpower is a finite tank and it depletes. And that's okay. That's normal. But structure your day accordingly and structure your systems, which I'm about to get into here in a minute, in a way so that you can leverage the ebbs and flows and willpower that you're going to have. And I don't know about you, but scheduling a workout with somebody is certainly more likely to get me to show up for it. And it's not going to take as much willpower because I'm not doing it alone. And there's power in that in and of itself. So foster accountability through yourself, or manufacture accountability through yourself to adhere to your goals. Tell people or schedule things with people. Number 4, this is ripped straight out of Atomic Habits. This is from James Clear's book, and I love this concept. He has a really interesting perspective on discipline. I get a lot of questions about, oh, dude, how do you stay so disciplined? First off, I'm not. I'm a fucking mess in a lot of ways. Okay. I'm disorganized. My time management could be better. I procrastinate sometimes. I'm not this. You see a very small glimpse of my life. I want to make that very clear. I am a human being, and I have things that I absolutely need to work on. And like cleaning my glasses really quick while I'm thinking about it, because I can barely see through them. But I have things that I need to work on too. And it just so happens like I have done fitness for so long that it doesn't take me the same amount of discipline it did 7 years ago when I started. It is so ingrained in my life that it is truly like brushing my teeth, whether it's a 30-minute gym workout or a 12-mile run, albeit the long run might take a little bit more out of me. But the point is, I enjoy it. I understand the benefits well, and it is so ingrained in my life that it does not take me that same amount of rigidity or discipline that it once did. So understand that. It's different for me. But also, I have put systems in place that make it not difficult for me. And this is James Clear's interesting perspective on discipline. He talks about your ability to be disciplined is really a byproduct of your systems. One of his quotes that I reference all the time is, we don't rise to the level of our goals, we fall to the level of our systems. And if your systems are poor, your goals are irrelevant because you'll never get there. The example he uses is, let's say you want to start watching TV less. You're spending too much time on the TV. He talks about, if you want to do less of something, increase the friction between you and the thing. If you want to do more of something, decrease the friction between you and the thing. So in the TV example, he says, if you want to watch less TV, take the batteries out of the remote. And if that's not enough, take the batteries out of the remote and close the entertainment center the TV sits in. And if that's not enough, take the batteries out of the remote, close the entertainment center that the TV sits in, and turn the TV around, reverse. And then before long, you have so many barriers that trigger you out of that unconscious habit into, oh shit, I said I was going to do less of this, that you ultimately do less of the thing. Now, I view fitness the same. There was a leaf blower right outside my window. Okay. Again, I pray you can't hear that. But I have systems in place that make fitness easy for me. For example, I want a cold plunge every day. So what did I do? I bought a premium ice bath that stays cold with a chiller. So all I have to do is wake up, walk down 2 flights of stairs, and I'm at my ice bath in 12 seconds. It's in my basement. I don't have to go get ice from the gas station. I don't have to clean it nearly as often every 3 days like I was, because it's got a filtration system. I have removed the friction between the thing that I want to do more of and me. I've removed the trigger or the friction, removed the barriers. For the things I want to do less of, one of which I caught myself getting bad about was screen time and masking it as, oh, I'm working. Well, no. When I'm doing stuff like this, what I'm doing now, talking to you guys, my phone is uncomfortably out of the way. Like I have to go get it. I have triggers that will pull me out of what I'm doing unconsciously to stop me from doing the thing. I was like, oh wait, my phone's in the other room. Why am I walking to my other room right now to get my phone? Stop that. So if you want fitness to be easier for you, try packing your bags with your gym clothes so you don't have to go home and then go to the gym. You just go straight to the gym and change. Try laying your clothes out the night before, something as simple as that your parents taught you when you were a kid. Removing the barriers increases your adherence, and having bulletproof systems makes discipline not that hard. Eating well, for example. I have a meal prep company. I don't have to think about eating well. I just grab a meal and put it in the microwave and it's ready in 90 seconds and I hit protein goal, micronutrients, macronutrients. I don't have to put a lot of effort and energy into it. And a lot of times people have to put so much energy into doing the thing that they want to do that it's fucking fatiguing and it's exhausting. And I don't blame you. If you only went to the gym 45 minutes away and you had to go to work, got to go home first because you forgot to pack your gym bag and you don't have any food prepped and you're starving, so you have to stop at a drive-thru, like that's difficult. You've got to find a way to rework your system so that discipline is just not that difficult. Because discipline doesn't, people seem to think that discipline means hard, but discipline and hard are not mutual. They are not mutually exclusive. Like the two can exist separate with each other. You can be disciplined and enjoy it. Like I enjoy training. I enjoy long runs. They're fun because I've built systems into my life that allow them to be fun. So become relentless about your systems, and becoming disciplined will be easier. And also read the book Atomic Habits. If you really struggle with sticking to things, read the book Atomic Habits. It's truly a life-changing book. I listened to it because I struggle with reading, uh, which I'm trying to get better about. I had a friend send me some books, shout out Isabella and Tyler, that are like fun to read because I don't want to be, of all the things I do think I do well, I don't read enough. I listen and I want to actually, the way the Pilgrims did it, open a book and read now and then, not let my ADD brain get the best of me. So those are the 4 actionable tips that you can use to get into a more disciplined state per se, or stick to your goals. The last thing that I'll close out on is the importance of keeping promises to yourself. You have to understand at the end of the day, there are just going to be hard days. You can do all of these hacks and tips and tricks, but at the end of the day, there are just going to be days you don't want to fucking do it. And that's okay. What's not okay is listening to that voice. The time it is most important to do the thing is the time that you least want to do the thing. You are about, I don't know, 90 to 100 instances away of saying yes when you really want to say no from being where you want to be. That is what built my love of training, my love of running, my love of doing hard shit. It was all the moments that it was the last thing I wanted to do, and I was looking out for me tomorrow, and I did it anyway. And now it's not as hard. Chris Williamson talks about do today what you tomorrow would want. Always be looking out for you tomorrow, because generally you tomorrow has your best interest at heart. And if you can do that, if you can always serve in the best interest of the tomorrow you're probably going to live the life that you want. And if keeping promises to yourself is something that you struggle with, it's because you're not looking out for you tomorrow. If you cannot keep a promise to yourself, how can you expect to keep promises to your loved ones, to your kids, to your siblings, to your partners? It is the very foundation of which the changing of your life is built upon, is the promises we keep to ourselves. The problem is they're also the easiest promises to break, because who knows if you break that promise to yourself? Nobody but you. If you hit snooze on the alarm, if you skip making your bed, if you skip workouts consistently, no one's really going to know or hold you accountable except for you. And that's what makes it so dangerous, is that no one's really holding you accountable. But if you use these systems, you can maybe bypass or mitigate that. You can tell people about it. You can pick people to do it with. But for the love of God, whatever you do, when you say you are going to do something, when you sign that contract with yourself, stick to it. That is the thing. That is the secret sauce. That is what changed my life. It's what has allowed me to do this right now. This year all started with being fat and unhappy and decided I was tired of not keeping promises to myself anymore. That's all it was. That when I said I was going to show up and do something, I did it. It changes everything. If James Clear says in his book, again, I know I'm referencing a lot, every action you take is casting a vote for the person that you will become. Do not take that lightly. Mark Manson says in Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, the person's voice that you spend the most time with is your own. Try not to lose that person's respect or something like that. I think he says the person that you spend the most time with is yourself. Try not to lose that person's respect. Every time you make a little promise to yourself and you don't keep it, no matter how big or small, that is a subconscious tally against your confidence. But every time you keep a promise to yourself, that is a little check mark in the box of self-confidence. And every little action you take throughout the day, no matter how big or small, is casting a vote for the person you'll become. So cast the right votes and keep your promises to yourself. It really is that simple. So thank you guys for listening. As usual, we're going to close out with a step check that's trying to keep the tradition alive of the solo episodes. So it is 1:34 Eastern Standard Time, and I'm at 10,759 steps, and I am very sore because I ran this morning after a 50-mile week, and I'm going to go hop in the ice bath and get some more work done. So thank you guys for being here. Drop a comment. Let me know what you thought of the episode. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe, like the video. It really does help me out. And if you're listening on Spotify, please give the show a rating of whatever you feel it deserves, though I would like a good one, please. Have a great week, and thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.